everyone, it's Shadow the Rat, and for today's video, I will be showing you how you can train your rats to run an agility course. If you aren't familiar with training rats, I suggest you first check out my complete guide on rat training video, which I will have linked in the description down below. Okay, so to get started with agility training, there are a few things you want to do. To start, you will want to choose your training area. This area should be somewhere that the rats are very used to exploring and very confident running around in as a result. If you want to use a new area to train, or if your rats are new and haven't yet adjusted to the free-range area, then I suggest you fill the area with hides and spend some time letting the rats explore and adjust at their own pace before beginning training. Another thing you want to do before moving on to agility training itself is to make sure you've taught your rats to follow a lure or a target. If you haven't already taught your rat to follow a food lure or target stick, I suggest you start by doing that first. I go into depth more about this in my training guide video, but basically to teach your rat to follow a lure, all you have to do is start by using a liquid treat like yogurt, or several small solid treats, and let your rat eat these as you slowly move your hand forwards. Once you've done this a few times, you can then start to keep the treat just out of reach for a step or two before rewarding, and then gradually work your way up to luring the rat at least 5 to 6 steps each time before rewarding them. Make sure to practice luring them in different directions and over and under things, along with asking for a different amount of steps each time before rewarding, in order to proof this behavior. On the other hand, if you want to use a target stick to teach your rats, you will want to teach them to follow a target by initially rewarding any interest they show when presented with the target, then starting to move the target a few steps away from them and only rewarding when they follow and touch it. Like with luring, you will want to build this up to at least 5 to 6 steps, and you will also want to proof it by asking your rat to follow the target in different directions, over things, under things, and so forth. In this video, I will be using luring to teach the agility course, but just know that if you prefer to use targeting, that will work just as well. I also want to note that if your rat is clicker trained, then that can really help speed up agility training. A clicker is just an object that makes the same noise every time you press it, and by teaching your rat to associate it with a treat, it gives you a very efficient and effective way to communicate to them exactly what you liked. I'm not going to go over clicker training in depth here, however if you'd like to know more about it, I have a section on it in the training video linked in the description down below. Now the final thing I would like to talk about before moving on to training itself is where you can get agility obstacles for rats. There are a few different options here, with the main ones being to either buy commercial ones or make them yourselves. If you are in the UK, then you can buy these commercial agility obstacles for rats in the Rat Stuff for Sale UK Facebook group, where one of the members makes rat-sized agility sets. These pictures come from that page because unfortunately this agility course can't be shipped to the US. I will be linking this group in the description below if anyone wants to check out those rat agility sets. As for those of you located in the US like I am, I have also found a fairly cheap and good quality rat agility obstacle course that you can buy here as well. That agility set is the Dog Agility Children's Playset by Melissa and Doug, and even though the agility set is meant to be used as a toy, it's both great quality and the perfect size for rats. So if you want to check it out, I will have that linked in the description down below as well. Unfortunately, those are the only 2 commercial agility sets that I know about, so if those are unavailable to you, then you will likely have to make your rat agility set yourself. Luckily, rats are small enough and light enough that using hot glue and popsicle sticks is perfect for making them an agility course, and so making each obstacle should be fairly quick and cheap. I will link my videos on how I made my DIY rat agility pieces from these materials in the description below if you want some inspiration. Okay, so once you have your agility set, and once your rat knows how to follow a lure or a target, the next thing you want to do is decide what agility obstacles you will be using. Because this is a demo video, I will be using an obstacle of every type, and these include a tunnel, a hurdle jump, a hoop jump, a seesaw, an A-frame, a covered tunnel, which is also known as a chute, and 6 weaves. If you are just starting out training your rats, however, I suggest you stick to just 4 to 5 obstacles, and that you stick to using easier obstacles such as the hurdle jump, hoop jump, A-frame, and tunnel, and once your rat has more experience working agility, you can then add in the more difficult obstacles such as the seesaw, chute, and weaves. Once you have decided on which obstacles you are going to use, then you have 2 options. The first is to set up your agility course and teach it to your rat with no prior training. The second option is to train each obstacle separately, and then once your rat understands how to navigate each obstacle, you can then place them in order and teach your rat to navigate them in that order. I prefer the second method because by teaching your rat to navigate each obstacle separately first, you reduce the chance of them getting frustrated or confused when learning the full course, and you also speed training for later courses. This is especially helpful when working the more difficult obstacles, which if not trained separately can really confuse the rat. Okay, so because I like the second method of training agility more, I will be using that to demonstrate agility training in this video. So to start, I will teach my rat each separate obstacle. I like to teach them in order of easiest to hardest, so in my case I will first teach the jumps, then the A-frame, then the tunnel, then the chute, then the seesaw, and finally the weaves. So to get started teaching the jump, all you have to do is lure your rat over the jump and reward them on the other side. If you have worked on luring and targeting prior to agility training, then this should be fairly easy for your rats to do. And if you are having any trouble leading them over these jumps, then I suggest you go back and work on luring or targeting separately for a bit, before returning to teaching the jumps themselves. Now once your rat is confidently following the lure over the jumps, you now want to start to fade out the lure. You can do this by making your gestures less and less obvious, until just pointing towards the jump cues your rat to jump over it. Once you have done this with the hurdle jump, you can now do the exact same thing to teach the hoop jump. Moving on to the A-frame, the way you teach this is also very similar to how you teach jumping. Now I do want to make a note here because typically I don't care about contacts. What I mean by this is unlike dog agility, where the dog needs to touch the white portion of the A-frame in order for it to count, in my case the A-frame is so close to the ground that it won't hurt the rats if they simply hop down from it, even from halfway up. So while you can technically teach the rats to do contacts just like a dog would, in this case I will just be teaching it like any other jump. All that is to say that just like the jumps before, I would start to train this by luring my rats slowly over the A-frame, then rewarding them on the other side. Once I do this a few times, I then switch to gradually fading out the lure by changing my direction luring to simple gestures forward, and then fading that to simply pointing at the A-frame and then rewarding my rat on the other side. As for the tunnel, teaching that is also pretty similar to teaching the jumps. All you have to do is lure your rat through the tunnel, starting with a short tunnel where you can easily show your rat the treat on the other side. Once they are readily going through the tunnel, you can then start to fade out your lure, again doing this by starting to gesture more at the tunnel instead of leading them directly through it, and then fading this to you just pointing at the tunnel and then rewarding them when they come out the other side. If you want to teach your rats to run through a curved tunnel, you can then easily do so by gradually making the tunnel more and more curved until you are happy. I suggest you use a tunnel such as the one shown on screen because those sorts of tunnels can be modified into different shapes and lengths very easily. Moving on to the chute, this one piggybacks off the tunnel training quite a bit. Assuming that you have already taught the tunnel, it's fairly easy to teach, as long as you go at the rat's pace. To start, roll up your chute so it just barely hangs over the exit for the tunnel. Next, cue your rat to go through the tunnel and reward them. If they seem hesitant, it's okay to go back to luring them some, but if they remain hesitant, you will want to roll the chute up even further to start. Once your rat is confidently going through the tunnel when you point at it with a bit of the chute hanging down, you can now start to gradually increase how much of the chute is hanging down. Each time you ask your rat to run through the tunnel, you want to move the chute down a bit more, and if they ever seem confused, don't be afraid to go back a step or use the lure to help them through it. Continue to unravel the chute piece by piece each time the rat runs through the tunnel until finally you have the entire chute rolled out. Finally, you want to cue the rat to run through the chute several times, each time rewarding them, in order to make sure they really have the obstacle down. As for the seesaw or teeter-totter, I train that just like all the other obstacles. Again, like the A-frame, I don't care about contacts. However, if you want, you can always train your rat to touch them before moving off the seesaw. As far as obstacles go, seesaws are a bit different from other obstacles in that they move, and if a rat isn't expecting this, it can really scare them. So to start, I will lead them over the seesaw with one hand while I hold it steady with the other hand. I will then slowly bring it down from one side to the other as my rat is being lured over it, in order to get them used to the motion. Once your rat is comfortable being lured over the seesaw while you slowly move it, you can then start to hold the seesaw less and less, so that the rat's weight is what's moving the seesaw and they get used to the full motion. At this point, I often reward my rats on the seesaw after it tips, along with once they get off the seesaw. Once they are comfortable with the seesaw's full motion, however, I will then switch to only rewarding once they get off the seesaw, and then like other obstacles, I will fade out my hand by starting to lure less and less until just pointing at the seesaw cues my rat to go over it. The final obstacle I have to teach is the weave pulls. Now dog trainers often teach these using what's known as the channel method, because this teaches the animal to almost subconsciously go through the weaves without making a mistake, and is typically more reliable than teaching the weaves with a lure. I have used this method to teach a rat to weave in the past, and so if you are curious about what this looks like, I will link that video in the description below. With that being said, I prefer to teach my rats to weave using a lure, and because I don't need them to perform this behavior in a place with lots of distractions, it tends to work well, at least for the many agility courses I have my rats do. So to teach weaves using luring, what you want to do is initially lure your rat through the weaves, and reward after every weave. After you do this a few times, you want to start only rewarding every other weave or so, and make sure to keep this unpredictable so your rat never knows how many weaves they have to do before getting a treat. Once they have done this a few times while following the lure, you then want to fade out the lure like you would with any other obstacle. So first you might be gesturing your rat for each weave they complete, but over time you should fade this out until your rat can weave continuously once pointed at the weaves. Once your rat can do at least 6 weaves continuously, then you can move on to using it as an agility prop. Okay, so now that your rat knows how to navigate each obstacle, you now want to set up your agility course. Now once your agility course is set up, you now want to use a method known as backchaining in order to teach your rat the entire sequence of obstacles. Backchaining is a training method where you work on the last behavior in a sequence first, then add in the second to last behavior, then the third to last behavior, and so on until you have the animal performing the entire sequence continuously. The reason I like to teach agility this way as opposed to working from the first obstacle to the last one is because by working from the last obstacle to the first, you have the animal working towards what they know best. And because they are working towards what they know best and have been rewarded for the most, they will be more confident when performing the course, along with make less mistakes. I use backchaining to teach everything from agility to fetch, basketball, and more, and if you want to work on complex sequences of behavior, then it's the ideal method for getting your rat to perform a sequence of behaviors in a reliable manner. Okay, so to start training your agility course in order, you now want to lead your rat to the last obstacle and lead them over it before rewarding them. This might sound strange considering we just taught the rats to do these obstacles separately, but since we are working on them in a new manner, it's a good idea to go back to the basics, at least for the first try. So you want to start by luring your rat over the last obstacle, then reward them. Then lead them to the correct spot behind the last obstacle again and see if they will navigate it without a lure. If they do so, you want to reward them, and if not, you can always work the obstacle a bit more using the lure, before gradually fading it out like you did when training the obstacles separately. Once your rat will confidently navigate the last obstacle without following a lure, you can then move on to adding in the second to last obstacle. To do this, you will again want to start by luring them through it, then reward them in place and see if they will then navigate the last obstacle. If they seem confused, you can initially lure the last obstacle as well, but try to fade this out as quickly as possible. Just like before, once you have practiced luring them through the second to last obstacle once or twice, you then want to see if they can navigate it without being lured. Once they navigate the second to last obstacle, make sure to reward them in place, and when they then navigate the last obstacle after that, make sure to reward that as well. Once you have done this a few times, start to only reward after the rat has navigated both obstacles. If your rat is new to training, this may initially confuse them, so you may have to alternate rewarding between obstacles and only rewarding at the end a few times before you can switch to just rewarding after that last obstacle. Continue to repeat this for each obstacle until you have worked your way backwards to the first obstacle. Don't forget to fade out rewarding between obstacles each time before adding in another obstacle. Once your rat can be consistently pointed at the first obstacle and confidently navigate the entire course before being rewarded only after completing the last obstacle, then they have mastered the agility course. If your rat ever seems confused when you add an obstacle, don't be afraid to go back to rewarding after it for a bit to build their confidence. You can see in this case Bean wasn't quite ready to do the entire course. However, after rewarding her problem areas a few times, she gained confidence and was able to consistently perform the entire course. And that's all there is to it! With each additional agility course that your rat masters, they will become better and better at learning new courses, until it will take them just 1 or 2 run-throughs to learn a new course. Bean here absolutely loves agility, as do my other rats, and as far as tricks go, this is definitely one of my favorite things to train with rats. I hope this video was helpful to anyone out there wanting to train their rats to run an agility course. Agility is a great way to bond with your rats, and it helps give them both the mental and physical enrichment that rats need. If you have any questions about the training process, feel free to ask me in the comments down below. Other than that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!